All right, welcome to my video on the A-10C 2 LASTE system. That's low altitude safety and targeting enhancement. Now, there's a lot of things the A-10 does, and I mean, yeah, of all the aircraft in DCS, it's at this point, and probably at least will be on par with any of the newer modules coming up. Extremely detailed in what is modeled and what it does as compared to an actual A-10. But just to be clear, I'm not a pilot. This is a study simulator or a desktop simulator. But according to SMEs and actual A-10 pilots, there's quite a bit in here that the A-10 and what you need to do to fly the A-10 does. So I tend to get off in these little tangents about like little individual components of the A-10 that help it do what it does. I was flying the Baltic Dragon campaign Iron Flag and went off on a rabbit hole about LASTE, the low altitude safety and targeting enhancement, notably the targeting enhancement, mainly because I've been flying some missions and we'd run into some weather and just had a miserable time with our munitions dropping and hitting a target in the wind. So I did some research, and as you go through the forums, through years and years of posts and write-ups about LASTE, I came away with the impression, at least initially, that LASTE is supposed to build a wind profile for you. As you fly up through the atmosphere, it's going to build a profile, and then when you drop munitions, guided weapons, it is going to adjust for that. Well, if someone knows how to do that, and they could put that in the comments, I'd appreciate it, because I can find no way to do that. And some pretty well-written articles never mention that. They do mention that the weather shop, meaning the actual weathermen and women in the armed forces, give that information out before you take off, or they load it into your mission profile. So, I dug into it, and what I found, at least LASTE in this version of the A-10, which I think is like a sweet 7 plus-ish with some things that the 7 doesn't have and some other things kind of thrown in, about 2013 version of the A-10C. But the LASTE part, the wind profile part, which is what I really dug into, is phenomenal, especially for guided weapons. And what I found after a lot of testing is it doesn't build a wind profile. It will, however, though, give you real-time data as you fly up through the atmosphere that you can then write down on your kneeboard and, type in a wind profile real quick. So on future missions or multiplayer servers or even single-player campaigns where there's wind or weather, it behooves you to get that information and plug it into your mission before you take off. Yeah, my German Shepherd's probably going to see the cat and blow this entire recording right now. But that's the best part of a home studio, right? So it behooves you to put that data in because it works. Again, I don't know how to build it as you fly out. I only know that you can grab the information in real time, or you can use a mission profile and punch it in. What I've also found through testing is if you don't load all, it's not actually going to work. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe someone knows, different. But in the testing I've done, unless you load it after you've entered it with load all, it's not going to work. So without a lot more, why I'm here and what I'm doing, let's get into LASTE. Again, low altitude safety and target enhancement, and how we use it so that our munitions will hit a target on a windy day. Uh, I've also found that it's very helpful for guided munitions and munitions like the CBU that use parachutes, bomblets with parachutes. Without LASTE data on this map and the wind I have on this map, which is 17 knots at like 2,000 feet, you're not going to hit anything. And it's 8 knots at the ground. So how do you do LASTE in the A-10 so that you can hit targets on a windy day? Well, as usual, we're going to have to go to our CDU. And you always need to be in the other page, because otherwise, no pun intended, you're not going to be able to get to these sub-menus. And the sub-menu, right now we're in waypoint, but if you want to get to the LASTE menu, it's sys, there it is, punch LASTE. And you're in the first screen about the parameters of LASTE. You're not in the wind menu yet. OFP is like an operational flight program. It's like an update. Init, obviously it was, successful service. I'm not sure what that's in relation to, but in this case our outcome is load pass. Weapon events is when LASTE actually performs a ballistics calculation when you drop a weapon, and then GCAS messages is the ground collision avoidance system. So the A-10 has the stability augmentation system right here, and the EAC, which is the enhanced attitude control or correction. I can't remember right now. And then we've got LASTE. So those three things combined help the A-10 A, employ the gun, B, drop weapons in windy or degraded conditions, and GCAS, ground collision avoidance system, works with all that to keep you from yard darting in bad weather, or when you're otherwise occupied and you get too close to the ground. So there's a lot going on here with this aircraft. So when we're in the main LASTE menu, in order to get to being able to put in data so that your guided munitions, especially cluster munitions, will work in windy conditions, you want to go into the wind submenu. And in the wind submenu, you've got altitude, wind, and temp. Also up here, this is a radial menu or an up-down menu, both. It's reading both right now. Well, what that does, when you get over the target, it allows you to choose what of the parameters in LASTE you're going to use. So both would be wind direction and temperature. You've also got, let's see here, and track IR, man, none. If you keep flying and you've got munitions at the end of a long, mission, and you reach an area that's relatively calm, don't use the obsolete profile data. The other thing you can do is wind only, temp only, or both. So for this, we're going to build it out. Now, I've done this a lot of times, so let's just say I have a mission briefing with some data on it. I've got 8 knots at ground, and the way you put this data in at the wind edit submenu is you do altitude first, and it's only a 2-digit precision setting. So 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet is just going to be 0.1, or if you want to round up, 0.2. 2,000 feet or 2,600 feet is going to be 0.2. 6,000 feet or 6,600 feet, either 0.6 or 0.7. So in this case, because we've got an 8-knot ground wind, we're just going to do altitude first. We're going to go 0, 0, And our next altitude metric is like 1,500 feet. We're just going to go 1,000 feet. And our next one is 6,600. I'm going to go ahead and just do 6,000 feet. And now we have our 3 elevation profiles or altitude profiles. But now we need to actually do the wind and the temp. So we're going to hit wind edit here. And there's our altitude profiles. But this is our direction from, and our speed in knots, and our temperature. Now, I've done this a lot, but I can't remember all of it. So I'm going to go to look at my briefing. And I've already done the math. That's the other thing. When you get some values in DCS, their wind direction is 2. And it's in meters per second. And it's not set up for magnetic variance, so which is minus 7 degrees. So these are guesstimations. Knots is equal, 1 meters per second. 1 meter per second is equal to 1.944 knots. So I just 2 times 4, 8 knots. This is 2, so we're going to add 180 degrees minus 7, 263 degrees. So these are the values you're going to put in, and here's what I've built out. So 1,600 feet and 6,600 feet. And of course I've taken in the magnetic variance. This one was slightly different. I actually got that on a fly out. So I used a slightly different here than 270. And same here except 90 degrees and minus 7, so 83 degrees. As you fly up, you're going to drop 2 degrees C for every 1,000 feet. So at ground, we're 8 knots, 270. I'm sorry. We're 8 knots at 263 degrees. And we're 20 degrees Celsius. So let's get into that. So we are 263. Shouldn't have drank so much coffee. At 8 knots. We're going to enter that. And we're 20 degrees Celsius. And our next profile was 1,600 feet. So I'm going to pull up my briefing again. And at 1,600 feet, I was 17 knots at 264, which was really honking, which screwed up everything I dropped no matter what. So 264 at 17 knots. 264, 17 knots. And we're up 1,000 feet, so we're minus, actually a little higher, so we're minus 2 degrees Celsius. So let's just say 17 degrees Celsius for giggles. And then our final one at 6,600 feet, sun's coming up. We're at 10 knots at 83 degrees. So here we go, 0, oops, sorry. Yeah, 83 at 10 knots. And we're 6,000 feet up, so minus 12 degrees C, so we're like 8 degrees Celsius. Yeah, let's just go with that. Now the other thing is this has 3 values, because it's a radial menu. So if you use your line select key, you can go plus or minus. So that'll give you your plus or minus value. So now that we've built our profile, we can go back to the main menu. We can see they're in there. And what I'm going to do is come back to my left MFD, and I go look at my Dismas, which is my digital stores management system. So I've got some slicks, dumb bombs, MK82, CBU 97, and a GBU 38, which is guided. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change that real quick. So let's just do, I'll filter this out. I'm going to rearm and refuel. I want another GBU. I've got two Gs. GBU 30. Oh, right, that's guided, but I want another CBU. So let's go CBU 8097. So we're only changing one thing.
Request rearming.
It won't take too long.
Copy.
Yeah, they already yanked it off. Yeah, and DCS is pretty magical, right? So we're not changing our fuel or any other loadouts. And let's see here. They're gonna, actually I think they'll load everything back. So man, the sun's coming up. Nice pink sky. And I don't think they're doing anything with my fuel.
Rearming complete.
There you go. I'll do check our fuel. That's about right. Yeah, that's what it should be. So let's see. Since we built the wind profile now, and we've changed our weapon loadout, we are going to do a load, and I'm going to do a load all. So that's like getting a new fresh DTC or data cartridge with my mission profile on it. That takes about 15 seconds. So we're going to do a quick sweep here. We're going to take off trim, flaps are up, the switches need to be where they need to be, or where they need to be. APU is off. That's a common mistake. My radios, yeah, they're on, but I'm not tuned to any tower frequencies. So I've got my stars back, and I show a 97 and 97, some rockets and everything else. And now I should also have a valid LASTE profile in here. So now that we've got all that, we're going to roll and we're going to go blow some stuff up. But being that we're in DCS and this has already gone on too long, my targets are at waypoint 2, which are right next to waypoint 3. I'm going to skip all the fancy tower talk and all that. And I'll go ahead and arm my systems. Don't need a laser. You know, normally it'd be like, yeah, tower, whatever airport this is flight so-and-so requesting permission, you know, to go to active runway, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to be like, yeah, man. So we're going to skip all that. I'm not going to try to hold at the ramp, and I'm not even going to take off right. I am just going to take the runway and scoot. And the tower's probably going to get mad at me. I'm not going to request takeoff. Let's get this girl rolling. It's windy. So let's make sure as we get up here. The wind is actually pushing this aircraft. So we're going to take the middle of the runway. We're not going to take the whole runway. And we're just going to take off. Now, we're going to go back to our LASTE menu because I want y'all to see this. There we go. Let's line up. Let's make sure our TGP is on. TGP is loaded. Yes. Stat. Next. Our HEMIX isn't on. We'll use that. So we've got our HEMIX. We're going to knock the intensity down on that. That's enough. Go back to here. We're going to go to waypoint 2 where we're going to bomb stuff. Let's knock this display brightness down a little bit. I'm going to go back to TGP, go back to our CDU. All right, so what I want you to see now is we're going to use both. Here's our first wind reading. We punched in 263 at 8 degrees at 20. Our actual reading in the LASTE is 263 degrees from 10 degrees at 20C. So we're pretty close. And as we fly out, you can compare that. So here we go. Yeah, now I'm on ground, not tower. Hey, ground, this is a dragon flight, blah, blah, blah. We're taking off. And they're like, hey, okay. And then we'll switch to departure as we leave, and they're going to tell us what airspace we can have and all the stuff that pilots do to get airplanes around in the air and not have something bad happen. So we're going to rotate here, lifting off, nice smooth lift off, get our gear up, make sure flaps are up, which I know they are. And as we climb, I'm going to go off a little bit here, out of the sun. And you can see as we climb through 1,000 feet, when we get a little over 1,000 feet, we'll look at our first, we're at 1,000 feet, and LASTE's 264 at 15. We're at 264 at 17, but when we hit about 2,000 feet, we're 264.12 and we're 264.17. So we're getting up to that, and we've hit it. So we're about right on the money now. We're still climbing. We're at 3,000 feet. And we're going to hit 6,000 feet. Our targets are over there. There's our targets on the ground. So when we hit close to 6,000 feet, we should have it, from 83 degrees at 10 knots at about 8 degrees Celsius. So we're at 5,500 feet, and we are at 82 degrees, almost, from 10 degrees at 8 degrees Celsius. So, the weather guys gave us a good read, and we're going to go do this. Let's switch back to our TGP, and let's go air to ground mode. And let's go look at our target. So we're going to China hat forward long. Let's see what we got. And look at there. We have targets. And we're going to create a point. We went from INR inertial to area to point. So we're going to go back to our Dismas. We're going to select a weapon, CBU, canister, parachute munitions, and we're going to turn into this guy. I'm going to drop back down to about 6,000 feet. Come back on the throttle. It's 14 miles out. And I'm coming in on it. There we are. And we're 13 miles out. We're 7,000 feet. Got a nice morning out around Dubai. I think our profiles, around 6,600 feet. We set our data for 6,000. We'll split the difference. That should be good enough. Let's level off. And there we go. We're going to switch our bombing mode to CCRP, which is continuously computed release point. And we line up the lines and we wait for the mill dot to drop when we pickle. And when the 3 mil, or I forget what that's called, hits the middle of my pipper, it's going to release the weapon. So, yeah, I'm sorry. A little bit off the throttle. You can see the nose coming up because the A-10 is automatically trying to keep me level and my nose in the air. So let's get back up to like 200 or so knots. And we're 8 miles out. Yeah, it's starting to drop down now because let's do about 220, 230 knots. We're going to line up our target here. I notice it's off a little bit. It's just to the right. Now it's doing that because of the different layers the canister has to go through, and then when it ruptures or opens up and then drops those bomblets. So what we want to follow is these drop lines, not where the sensor point of interest is on the ground. So we're coming up here, 230 knots for 5 miles out. She'll probably start ticking down around 3 miles or so. I keep those lines lined up. 4.8. Yeah, we should be going on timer here. 3.5. And there's a timer, 21 seconds. 19. 17. And it's going to stop dropping around 10, 9 seconds. We're going to hold our pickle button. Line it up. And bingo, she is away. So I'm going to hit autopilot with the magic of DCS. We're going to see how well this works. So here we are. Dropping down, and you'll see the bomblets dispersed quite a bit before the target. And notice how they are now drifting in. Trust me, without a LASTE profile, these guys would be way off. And there they go. They're starting their seeker part where they're going to look for targets. And yeah. Oh. Yeah, I don't know if you could hear me over all that, but magic of DCS, you can see that wind's moving pretty good. So there we go. Now, the reason I'm going over this again is I'm going to come back around. We're going to drop this CBU, and we're going to come at it from 90 degrees off, because I had a very good question by a subscriber, Josh. And he wanted to know, well, what if you're not lined up with the wind? What if you come at it crossways? Does LASTE offset the pipper? Well, I assumed it did, but you know what they say about assuming. So I flew it, and it does. So we're going to come back and hit those guys, even though they're all dead. Yeah, and we are going to waypoint off, auto. That's what auto does. It'll move the waypoint for you. So there we have our burning wrecks. Nice pattern. All of them taken out, no problem. So we're going to level off. We're going to go back and hit that waypoint. Let's go back to our TAD. Our tactical area display. Brighten it up a little bit. And I guess I could go day mode. Yeah, we're going to come back. We're going to get a few miles out. And we're going to watch the behavior of this munition. The other thing I've noticed with LASTE is anything that's guided and windy, especially very windy conditions, especially with parachutes, the accuracy is dramatically improved. Without it, you're just gonna miss. Dumb bombs, slicks, unguided munitions, they still aren't going to do very well. The wind's just going to mess with them. I think LASTE with a guided munition is just almost 100% success, because LASTE is going to take into account the wind profile of the bomblets, which are unguided. The munition itself is going to be able to maneuver in such a way, because it's guided, to get within an optimal zone for the LASTE calculation. At least that's my best guess, or my assumption. Again, I'm not an SME or an expert. We're 10 miles out. Let's turn back into our target. So coming at it 90 degrees from where we were, the question was, would it offset the pipper? Well, it does by quite a bit, so that you lead the target based on the run we're going to make here and the direction the wind's coming from. So here we go. Let's make sure we're straight on at it. I'm at 7,000 feet. Let's drop down a little bit. We got a nice morning over Abu Dhabi. Probably saying it wrong, but that's that Midwestern Texas, Virginian, Hoosier
Warning, autopilot.
mix. My drawl. So it's a mess. You'll have to forgive me. Slow down here a little bit. And there's our target and our burning targets. I'll drop down to about 6,600 feet. Now I'm a little wonky because aircraft's asymmetrical due to the drop earlier. And I'm just going to rehome that. Now we're in point mode where we need to be. We're 6,300 feet. We're going to go back to CCRP. And you'll see where my targeting sensor point of interest is, but my lead line, my drop line, is now way to the right of that, and you can see the direction the wind's blowing in here. So LASTE does indeed offset the drop line in relation to the sensor point of interest, the target targeting area that your aircraft is set on. So we're about 4.3 miles out, and I'm not going to try to watch both things here. I'm just going to keep this level and make sure I drop when I need to. So we should be getting a drop signal here soon. Yep, there we go. 20 seconds, 17. I'm going to fly a little off here, so I don't have to maneuver so cranky like as the pipper drops. Here we go, holding the pickle. And pickle. And she's away. Autopilot. Magic of DCS. And let's see what our munition with parachute bombless does this time. Yeah, you can tell we're way ahead. We're also headed back towards the back of the column there. But as we zoom in on our bomblets, we see we're going to get a nice spread that would cover the whole convoy if it was still intact or even moving, because when we go in point track mode, it's going to make those calculations. Here we go. Bombments are now activating. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a bad day, friends. That is a bad day. So, thanks to Josh for asking that question. Any comments or questions? I'll be more than happy to remake this entire thing again. Or at least add a supplement to it as to how the subsystems, especially in this case, the LASTE subsystem in the A-10 works. It does work. You should use it. Don't count on it building a profile, in my experience, and punch in that data. And if you get on a server and there is weather and you didn't get a chance to punch in that data, you can do what's called a show of force, meaning, before you get to the target, obviously. Drop down and fly back up for the altitude, the elevations. Watch your real-time, LASTE meter and your CDU, like right here. So notice how close we are here. Note those values on your kneeboard, your scratch pad, punch them in, and good luck. I hope this was helpful to everyone. Till next time.